My name is Herb. I'm an alcoholic. Welcome to our Big Book Zoom workshop. Welcome wherever you are in the world today, actively on the call or hopefully actively listening to it at some point when it's more convenient for you. Please join me in the set-aside prayer. It's a prayer for intervention, as we've known, an attitude primarily that gets converted into words. Your words are fine. I have some words that I've used formulaically, but it's really about your intention. God, please set aside everything that I think I know about myself, my brokenness, the 12 steps in you, for an open mind and a new experience of myself, my brokenness, the 12 steps, and especially you. Please join me in the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Wisdom. That's the knowledge we get in the milieu of prayer if we're open and willing to learn from our mistakes. I may have mentioned, but I heard a phrase a month ago that just really was wonderful. A new succinct wisdom phrase, and it says, life is a practice. Wow, it so released me from all the tasks and all the correct decisions and actions. I really have done the best I could, even when I was completely delusional. It was the best I could. In 1988, I had a conversion experience due to this work. And it started, however, with the fourth column of the resentment inventory. The third column that we're about to look at today was given to me. I'm confident it was, but probably very superficially, because this man who took me through the work and had a wonderful mechanical understanding of most of the instructions in the big book did not have any particular insight or new instruction with regard to column 3. So he gave me what he himself had been given. I didn't know that he didn't know. And he didn't know that he didn't know. I'm saying it this way because it's a process, and really in the context of what I opened with in terms of life is a practice, and so is this work. I've emphasized that from the beginning, a process like a dimmer switch that goes up a notch at a time with a little bit of light, revealed with each click, with each step, with each day, with each action. And then when there is sufficient accumulated light, there's a breakthrough. The curtain parts, or at least one of the curtain parts. It's a multi-level curtain. And we see more for the very first time. And so in 1988, I saw the fourth column, but not the third column. He looked at this third column on page 65, and we read the material, but he had no interpretation, and he had no definitions, and he had no instructions other than match up those words with your column 1 and 2. Well, I did it. It was like a jigsaw puzzle, just cross-referencing, and nothing happened. Of course, because it was mechanical. It wasn't thoughtful. There was no thought in it. It wasn't analytical because there were no definitions and there were no specific instructions. And so it was a checkbox. I've never had any experience with any checkbox exercise because it's thoughtless, mechanical. at the very superficial level. That did not stop me in 1988, that time going through the work for the first time, from having a very powerful transformative experience in column 4. I'm saying it this way so that you get it. You don't have to do it in order. At least that's my experience with it. He gave me wonderful definitions and application of the instructions in column 4, and it blew open not just the curtains, but the iron door that had sealed my delusions from me. It was embarrassing. I mean, radically embarrassing for me to have all of that revealed to me for the very first time. Not that the revelation was embarrassing, it was. The most embarrassing part is that I had spent 48 years diligently seeking and studying with what I thought were really good developmental teachers, and I had not broken the code. I had not seen the truth. I was embarrassed not only for what I saw, but that it took me that long to see what I was seeing at that time. Well, now the good news is, and this is going to be relevant to what we'll do today, is that in 1991, 3 years later, I did the work with another man who gave me the instructions I'm about to give you. And more curtains parted and a deeper penetration. And that's where I came up with the experience, not just the words, but the experience of penetrating the unconscious. I saw underneath stuff for the very first time. The prior 12-step work and any therapy up to that point had not penetrated it. But this work did. So let's take a look at it. We've made a list of our resentments, column 1 and 2, very straightforward. It's on a scratch paper. Now we're, for the very first time, going to look at the worksheet in a minute, the worksheet in the Way of Life document. But let's take a look at the instructions first. On page 64, we listed people, institutions, or principles with whom we were angry. Column 1, you've done some of that. We asked ourselves why we were angry. Column 2, you've done some of that. You don't have to have finished it. As long as you've addressed it a little bit, you're fine. In most cases, and if you haven't, do it now. Who are you angry with? 1 or 2 or 3 people. And why are you angry? 1 or 2 or 3 reasons for each person. You can do it right now if you haven't done it up till now. Don't spend much time on it. Just give it the time that it looks like somebody spent on page 65 in columns 1 and 2. Very, 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 very simple and short. Now, listen to this paragraph. In most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, no definitions here. Our pocketbook, no definition, although we can kind of sense that's probably about money. Back in the self-esteem, we might suspect that that's about psychological high self-esteem and low self-esteem, and that would be incorrect. That's not what it's about in the process that I've experienced. Self-esteem was defined here as my belief about myself, my deep belief, not my thought, not my feeling. This is a very analytical process. We come from our head, we come from our thinking. We're not going to come from our heart. We're not going to come from our emotions. We're not going to come from psychology. It's going to be a little challenging. I hope you really did mean the set-aside attitude in prayer. Our ambitions, okay, pretty straightforward. What do I want? Our personal relationships, okay, including sex, okay, pretty straightforward. We're hurt or threatened. Here are the verbs. Those are important. You see, this is about survival instincts. Bill gave us that clue, gave me that clue in step 4 in the 12 and 12 inventory when he calls it basic instincts. I've gone over that with you. Fight, flight, and freeze. This is the fight instinct, the anger instinct, the resentment instinct. Resentment meaning I'm holding anger and feeling it again. Resentire, sentire, to feel, again. Hurt or threatened. Therefore, I have this survival reaction of anger and resentment. So we were sore, a synonym for resentment. We were burned up, a synonym for resentment. Bill really wants to see it, us to see it. So he uses various synonyms so that we can kind of get a hold of it from our own personal vantage perspective and experience. Bill's literary style in the big book is not to be redundant, meaning he doesn't repeat himself. Intentionally, a literary style not to repeat himself. So when he does, it means that he's very intentionally emphasizing it. There's two places that I know of that he's redundant. This is one of them. On our grudge list, it's going to be the same paragraph that he gave us before with a little bit of difference. On our grudge list, resentment synonym. We said opposite each name are injuries, synonym for resentment. Column 1, column 2. Was it our self-esteem? He gave us that word already. Our security, a new word. What does it mean? Well, we made up a definition. If ambition is what do I want, security is what do I need? And we'll go over the worksheet. You don't have to worry about making notes right now. I'm just giving you the sense of how it was unpacked to me the second time I was going through the step work. Our ambitions, we had that word before. Our personal, we had that word before. Or sex relations. It was combined in parentheses, but we had it before in the prior paragraph, which had been interfered with. Oh, a new verb. So we have 3 verbs now: hurt, threatened, or interfered with. And you'll see that's what I use in the worksheet. So he says we're as definite as this example, and then he lists in that 3rd column all of these words. You can see it. Next to self-esteem, he put fear, curious. Going down to the 4th item, self-esteem again, he put fear next to it. He has not indicated that in either of the paragraphs, and there's no explanation for it. Again, self-esteem and fear. Again, self-esteem and fear. Again, self-esteem and fear. Obvious pattern there. Then at the very end, close to the end of that column, he introduces a word that was not in the 2 prior paragraphs: pride. He doesn't give us any definition for it. So we make up a definition, which I'll review when I get to the worksheet. Personal sex relations, security, fear. Oh, he changed his pattern. He put fear next to security. All of this might seem kind of picayune or minute, picking lint out of my navel. It's not. We went back through our lives, nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. All right, now that's what we're going to do. In the Way of Life document, column 3. It's a worksheet now. This is where you'll do your work. You'll take a look at your list of resentments and why you have it on that scratch paper that you had developed it. And you'll take the first one. But first you'll pray, it says here on the worksheet, the set-aside prayer, some form of it. I don't recommend that you write in a long prayer. I recommend you write in a word or a phrase. God help me as I do this worksheet. God free me as I do this worksheet. God open my heart. God open my mind. Spontaneous. Don't pre-think it and don't give it much thought, but give it a lot of attention when you're approaching it, reinforcing the set-aside attitude that might be expressed in a word or 2 here. but keep it short. This is not the exercise. This is the prelude to the exercise. Consider, then we put in from our scratch paper the first person that we want to talk about. When I resented, I'm going to talk about Bob. He was a coworker of mine in 1988, so it was very current at that time. I had been with the company 20 years, and Bob had been there 20 years, and he was an officer of the company like I was. We were peers, and because I was 4 years sober, I thought I was okay, but I hadn't changed because I hadn't done any work at the beginning of 1988, and I had had 17 years of drinking behavior and the 4 years of sober, non-changed behavior, and he was fed up with it. A peer of mine didn't like me and wanted me out of the company. Yeah, he put together a posse in pursuit of firing me after my 20 years with the company. Well, you kind of get the feel of it. I was angry about that, of course. When I resented Bob for trying to get me fired. See how simple that was? Oh, there's a story there. Believe me, I could spend an hour telling you the story, but that would be pointless because it's just a story. It's not the facts. And this is what we're looking for, the exact nature, the causes and conditions. Remember page 64. Did it hurt, threaten, or interfere? There's those verbs from the big book. My self-esteem. All right, so all of the 7 words on the left-hand side are in bold. Self-esteem, pride, ambition, security, personal relations, sex, and pocketbook. Because those are the words from the big book. All of the non-bold words are definitions that have been given to me or that I made up. I'm making that distinction because I promised you I'm a big book literalist and fundamentalist. I want to be clear about what's in the big book and what is not. Self-esteem. What is my deep belief about who I am? Notice it's not my thought. It's not my feeling. It's not my psychological evaluation. It's belief. So we should look up the word belief and know what that means. And we've done that when we did step 2. Maybe it has a different connotation and maybe it doesn't. It's that belief that I have about I am. And notice there's a prompter underneath that, I am. All right. So and the man had me put Bob on a stage. That's a very important technique. Put yourself on a stage with the person with whom you have the resentment. You're standing there, they're standing there, you're looking at one another, you have this feeling. Resentment is a feeling, but we're thinking about the feeling. We're not feeling the feeling. I hope that's clear because it's critically important. We're not going to come from the feeling of anger to, in this 3rd column, to do the analysis. We're going to come from our head, not our heart. We're going to be thinking about, so examining, trying to unpack. What is my deep belief about who I am? I am standing in front of Bob on a stage. I am an outstanding salesman, an outstanding employee, a man of integrity, and a leader of leaders, and worthy of the promised promotion. There was a promotion that was being considered. I was one of 3 candidates. Bob wasn't. He didn't want the job, but he didn't want me to have the job, to run the Los Angeles office. I am, you heard me, superior employee, outstanding salesman, God's gift to any corporation. And this man said, stretch it, Herb, step out of the box. I'm the best employee this employer could ever have. They should be ecstatic that they have me on their payroll. I'm stretching it. It wasn't much of a stretch once I made the stretch because there was such grandiosity and arrogance in me that I didn't see that there was grandiosity and arrogance. I really did believe what I thought I believed as the truth. But then I go over to the fear column. Please don't skip this aspect of the instructions. It's implied on page 65 where Bill put fear next to a couple of the words. This man suggested I put fear next to every word, and that every word applies. All 7 of them apply because they look at the same resentment from different perspectives. And you'll see that as I go through it. I'm going to go through this worksheet, then we're going to talk about it. Then I'm going to have you do a sample worksheet or 2 or 3 between here and when we get back together again. And then we're going to go over it line by line and actually do the work in the workshop. We won't do that today, although you're welcome to translate what I'm saying about my resentment into your resentment and try to get a feel for it on this worksheet that you're doing as kind of a draft, sort of a beta test site. If this sounds complicated, it might be. If this sounds analytical, it absolutely is. If this sounds difficult, yeah, it probably will be, because it's not the way we normally think. We're not trained to do this. But you're going to be and are being now trained to do this. And we will practice it together. What is my fear? You see, then I'm coming from a totally different viewpoint. I just said what I thought I said to you, what I thought about my grandiosity and my exceptional character. My fear is I won't be seen as I see myself. Now, I could have come up with many different answers, but that's the answer I have today. Those of you who have been with me before, you know that I've had different answers at different times, because that fear is about the feeling. The left-hand side, self-esteem, is a thought, an analysis. When I go to the right-hand side, I drop into my heart, into my gut. What do I fear? Now I come back up into my head, pride. This is not the pride of the 7 capital sins. It has a unique definition, only applicable here by Herb's standards, not by the dictionary standards, not by anybody else's standards. This is just my interpretation. Pride. I'm standing in front of Bob, and now I put an audience in the theater, an audience of my coworkers, and they are looking at Bob, looking at me. How do I want the audience, my coworkers, to see Bob treating me? Well, I want my coworkers to see Bob treating me with respect. This man said to me, he was real tough. Is that all you want, Herb, is respect? No. I want obedience. I want obeisance. I want him, when I'm standing in front of him, when he walks onto the stage, to back up 3 or 4 feet in honor of my presence and to even bow. Now, you hear how outrageous that sounds? And yet, I thought it was a stretch until I stretched it and said, yeah, no, that's kind of what I'd like. I mean, he's not even eligible to shine my shoes. I mean, this is a peer of mine. This is a coworker of mine. All right. So that's what I put there. I want them to see him treating me with this kind of kingly attitude. I'm the king and he's the peasant. What is my fear? They will see him treating me dismissively, and they will too. Wow, that cracked open. I didn't know I had fears like that. Ambition, that's really straightforward. It's not analytical. What do I want? I want to get the promotion. It means a lot of power and prestige and money. I want the promotion. It's real simple. Security. Oh, my fear is I won't get it. Security. What do I need in order to be okay? Now, here's the second part of that. Why? You see, it's in bold. Why? Why do I need it? I need to get that promotion in that position. Why? Because I don't want anybody looking over my shoulder to hold me accountable or evaluate my performance. What's my fear? They'll find out I'm a fraud. Wow, that just blew me back. that I had that underbelly, that unconscious fear that was being covered up with the bravado, the grandiosity, the sense of being extraordinary, entitled, untouchable. Personal relations. Well, this man gave me a definition. How do I expect this relationship should be in a workplace? All right. People in a workplace should respect one another, should work together and cooperate. That's what I expect. That's what I believe is the fair and proper thing to do. Belief again. If you want to get to the word, if you want to get to the reality more quickly, use the word should. Coworkers should. Bosses should. Employees should. Because should reveals what I believe. What is my fear? Everybody's going to get in my way. People are not like that. People are not fair. People are not respectful. People are not considerate. Sex. So this man had an interesting observation. The third component of the step 4 inventory is about sex. Resentment, fear, and sex. Those are the three components. He said, if in fact Bill gives us an entire section, a third of the step 4 inventory on genital sex, perhaps this isn't about genital sex. This is about gender. It's totally his speculation, but it really worked for me. So work with me on this one. Think about gender. Don't think about sex, male, female. Relationships with women and relationships with men. What is my belief about men and women? A real man, now I put it in the workplace, a real male worker is a comrade. We walk arm in arm to solve problems, and we're totally collaborative. What is my fear? They're backstabbing, ambitious, knee-breaking people like I am. Never had verbalized, never had consciously thought that thought before. And I began to become aware of my own narcissism. Now, I'd had the advantage of the prior work 3 years earlier in column 4, where I took responsibility for my thoughts and my feelings and my behavior. That was transformative, and it probably set me up for this deeper experience. I was also in therapy at the time. And this therapist was walking as a partner with me as I was doing this step work. And we were exploring narcissism at that time. I don't know whether you've ever looked at some parts of the Way of Life document, but in the step 6 area, I've got lots of supplemental material outside of the big book, not the least of which is a description of a personality disorder called narcissism on page 31. I'll just give it a summary. Number 1, an exaggerated sense of self-importance. Number 2, preoccupation with unlimited success and power. 3, a belief of being special. 4, requiring excessive admiration. 5, a sense of entitlement. 6, selfish and taking advantage of others. 7, lacking empathy. 8, envy of others or belief that others envy them. 9, behaviors or attitudes that are arrogant, haughty, patronizing, or contemptuous. This man, my therapist, had made a copy of this for me and gave me that copy from his diagnostic manual. This is a formal scientific manual listing character disorders of the narcissistic personality. He gave me the sheet of paper with this comment: the only thing missing, Herb, is your picture. All right, you're all laughing. I wasn't laughing that day, I'll tell you. But again, it cracked open at a much deeper level because of this preparatory work I was doing in the column 3. So men are locking arms together, solving problems together. My fear is, I told you that they're dysfunctional like I am, unhealthy. Well, what about a woman in the workplace? This is 1988. I have to apologize to the women on the call and to any woman that I'm talking to about this, because in 1988, I was the classic male chauvinist. I mean, for the generation I represented, it's not an excuse. It might be an explanation. Be that as it may, at that time in the workplace, as a member of management, I thought that women were necessary in the workplace, subordinate by nature to men, and they were there to do all the administrative work that needed to be done and anything that we didn't want to do. My fear is that they will embarrass me. I had never seen that. My discomfort around women was that they would embarrass me publicly. One of my real tender spots is being embarrassed publicly or being wrong publicly. I didn't know that until I was doing this work. It had never come out in the same way with the same impact in therapy. And I can explain it therapeutically, but that's not a point. I've absolutely been able to deal with it and have it diminish quite a lot so that it's not a handicap any longer. Well, at least by my standards. Number 7, pocketbook is about money, unless it's not. What is the affected value? So I translated. It might not be about money. This was about money, power, and prestige to get that promotion. All right. Nothing should interfere with, affect, or lessen my ability to get what I wanted. A global statement. No, my belief was if I want it, I should have it. I'm entitled. That was the word, entitled. You heard it in the narcissistic personality description. It's neurotic. It's a character disorder. But it was truly my deepest belief. And that I was exempt from the rules. Man-made rules, God-made rules, church-made rules, culture's rules. I was exempt. You, the little people, had to comply, but I was above it. Now, was I aware of that? No. But I began becoming aware of it here. What's my fear? Everybody's going to get in the way of my getting what I want, and I won't get it. And so that's why I took these hard stances with people. All right. So that's an example from my own 1988 worksheet, 1991 worksheet, as I went through this. As I say, that's an example for you to exercise now 1 or 2 or 3 of your own between now and the time we get back together again. Some of you might have formed little cohorts. I really recommend that, to work together in between our weekly workshops where people may or may not have experience with it, but when you work together, it works as a nice sounding board and support while you're trying to figure it out. Once you do 1 and then 2 and then 3 and have it reviewed here, or at least listen to it being reviewed by other people, you will break the code, what I call break the code. But also, let me just give you this caution. This man gave me that assignment. Take 3 herb and do them. I did them. I came back. I read them to him and he said, and he helped me a lot get clearer about it. And I was about 50% okay. He gave me the assignment to go back and do 3 more. I did. I came back a week later with those 3 and we reviewed it. And he said, I've got about 75% clarity. He gave me 3 more. I went away for another week. I came back and we went over it, and I was pretty confident in understanding how to unpack it productively for myself. Keep in mind, there's no right or wrong answer, please. There's no right or wrong answer. There's just helpful and healthy ways of getting to the core of the issue. I've talked enough now, and so now I'm going to call on some people.
So I started doing this work with my this program sponsor a couple of years ago, and I had done third column work, and I've done third column work a couple of times. Um, and so I feel like I would be cheating myself if I went back and looked at my old worksheets. That
Oh, thank you for that. Please do not do that.
Yeah,
Do not go to prior work at this point. Someplace down the road, yes, it's fine. Not now, because you'll be connecting to an old experience.
yes, and
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
sure. But I feel like because of my lack of traction in so many areas of my life, and the reason that I'm in this workshop to begin with, requires that I start fresh with, even if they're old resentments that I've already written about, because I'm just in a different place with them. Um,
Yes.
and uh, the the one thing that I know that I almost always land in, having to do with fear, two places, and that may not happen with this time around, but my fear is that I will either go insane or I'll die. Like when I go the entire length of what's underneath the underneath, that's where I land. Is that I'll end up in a mental institution, I'll be permanently crazy, or I'll die, I'll kill myself or whatever.
Well, in either case, you won't know.
Right. Right. Oh Lord, yeah.
It's kind of like my wife before she died was having a little cognitive problems. She said, "You know, the really good news of this, Herb, is I don't remember my resentments."
Yes, exactly, exactly. So I'm finding it, daunting, but I want to do it. I want to get to the next place in my life. And I know intellectually and I know psychologically that I'm still carrying so much baggage. And I just don't want to carry it anymore. It's too heavy
So what's your plan?
to do these worksheets again. And, uh, I've already talked to my sponsor about some of the individuals on my list, and what they did. And what's surprising me is that I think it's going to be a lot about intimacy and intimate relationships, because I don't have them. I haven't had one in 30 years. Sort of tracking that back to the moment that, I thought I was getting married and then we didn't. But even before that, like the old wounds that inspired, that then shut down everything. So it's a lot, but I want to do it.
Well, it's a lot of feelings.
That is.
There's lots of like tributaries of the feeling, because that's a major stream,
That is.
rushing river, as I see it. And you've reminded me, thank you, to give the assignment that I want to give you, because I want you to have a tool that you can get in advance of the work that we'll look at in the big book later on. So I want you to do the next, while we're doing, while you're beginning to practice about the third column, do assignment 13.
Okay.
It's a reading assignment of pages 66 and 67 about prayer for the removal of deep resentments. Do that reading, and I think it'll be a wonderful tool to work with as you're unpacking your third column. Thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, sure. The other thing that has occurred to me that's going to be challenging is that I'm going to be doing these resentment sheets while I'm with my family whom I resent. So that's going to present some very curious.
You have a choice of not doing it and just not poking at the wound, or of maybe doing it and having a little bit of healing with the wound while you're actually in the environment. But that's a choice that you need to make, and talk to your sponsor about that.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
But, I feel ready. I guess that the structure.
You sound ready to do some work.
I am. The structure of this is really, really helpful.
And I just want to assure everybody that we will be doing it together as a group.
Mm.
Over several weeks. We will be going line by line. We're not going to do an entire worksheet with one person. We're going to spend an entire workshop on item number 1, self-esteem, and item number 2, pride. And we'll do it together here. And you can work on your own and ask questions from the live moment that you're doing it. It's a methodology that was recommended to me by my workshops, and I've begun to incorporate it. It really works really well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I have a real problem with saying resentment. So I could use it, but a really intelligent, kind person like me wouldn't resent, right? So I can't seem to get it out of my mouth. So I'm able to use grieving, disappointed, annoyed. I'm able to use saddened. I might be able to stretch it and use resentment, but I'm not comfortable. I don't really want to.
Use the word. Don't use the word resent.
Okay.
Sounds like you got a really nice vocabulary there. In terms of you used the word annoy. That's good. And try irritate also.
Okay. All right. I'm done. Yeah. Yeah. And then I'll get the same result. Like it'll come through.
You will get wonderful results with those words.
Okay. Good. Right. Good. Okay. That's good. That's number 1 question. Number 2 is another word for my beliefs, faulty thinking. Like, you know how it's in the big book, they're kind of like, I way back when we were studying 1 and 2, I put in big circles something about I have faulty thinking.
Yeah.
So is it my beliefs, or am I just muddying the waters here?
Yeah, no. I think it's a great question, but you'll be the judge of that. You'll be the judge as to whether your beliefs are healthy or not. I'm not the criteria of your health. You are.
I'm assuming they're all going to be faulty. I'm jumping to that conclusion.
They're all going to be what?
They're all going to be faulty thinking. I'm assuming they're all going to be wrong. So.
Well, and so just be aware that that's your assumption, and then see what is revealed. Because I don't know whether that's going to be true or not.
Okay, good. And then number 3, the question I have is on question number 6 on sex, the gender there. When we're doing these forms, and I want to do both, like a male and a female, whether it kind of fits or doesn't. I want to put it down because I think maybe we should.
I recommend that. No, I recommend it because we're exploring and expanding the potential of our experience. It may be an evaluation of your mother because of the negative energy that you have about that. But then take a look at your energy around father or husband or boss that's male. Absolutely. There's a lot of dynamics that can be explored there. So I really recommend that kind of out of the box, creative, a little bit extra, and again, my challenge is how free do you want to be?
Yeah, that's good. And then I guess the question is similar for number 7. My value could be money, could be emotional security, well-being, or all of them, right? They could be all of them. I could list all of those in there.
Term value there. Benefit or a value. Yeah.
And no, I think that's it. No, I think that's my questions.
That's wonderful. And it reminds me to remind people, this is not a test for completion of the right answers. This is just a tool to prompt you to have an experience.
Awesome. Thank you. And you have a good Christmas. Hey, we'll see you next year.
Wonderful that you're thinking about it like that. And we'll see what your experience is with it. That's great. Thank you.
When I was doing my resentment list, I broke it up into chunks, segments. And what I realized was that I don't remember like I'll go to junior high school. I don't remember the names of the people, but I remember the feelings. So it's kind of like a group. And so that's what I want to kind of put on the sheet, like
Absolutely.
a group.
Absolutely.
How
Because
it's like
in
the girls
fact,
in junior high.
yeah, because it's not about them, is it?
No, it's about me and how I felt and how I interpreted it.
And I'll bet you that when you unpack that group and you look at the groups in college and the groups in your current adult life, there's not going to be any difference in the dynamic.
Probably not. I've already started to see that a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Because what's the center post of it all?
Me.
Yep.
You know,
How many variations on Keith can there be?
How many stars are in the sky?
Well, no, just the opposite. There are many stars, but there's very few variations on Keith.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
The reason that Keith has resentments, they're going to be one or two or three, probably main reasons.
Okay.
Now, it will manifest in stars in the sky.
Right. Yeah, it manifests in different ways, but
Yes, because that's when you explode in the big boom.
big boom, right? Exactly. Yeah. That's for sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've been looking at the sheet, and the fear part, I'm not, I'm not so. I have to think more on the fear part.
No, you don't.
Okay.
You have to feel more.
Okay.
See, I made a distinction. On the left-hand side, we think about it. On the right-hand side, we feel about it.
Feel about it. Okay.
And I didn't know that then, but in helping people unpack it, it's really helpful to know that there's a shift here that will give you a bigger experience. You can't do it wrong, and you can't do it right. You can only have an experience with it that's this big or this big.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Does that help?
That helps a lot. That definitely helps a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Went to a treatment for pain pills 9 years ago, and we used like the Don Fritz.
Oh yeah. Well, this work came out of Denver, where Don was. He was one of the grandfathers of the whole lineage.
Yeah, so I've done it before thoroughly
But you're going to set that aside, aren't you?
I am going to set it aside, and I've had 9 years to set it aside. So, I've done inventory over those 9 years, but, not consistently.
Mm-hmm.
And there's definitely some good juicy resentments that have built up, and I'm very excited. I know some of like the best time, moments I've had have been after doing, 4-step work. And but one thing I've noticed makes me really uncomfortable is the self-esteem, that exaggeration part. And I don't know why. Maybe it's why it pushes my buttons. Like, why is it we don't just say for one here, okay, self-esteem, what is my belief? I believe I'm a kind, respectful person.
That's kind of timid and tame.
Okay, but it seems like, why are we like that? My sense is that I should be in reality, though, like giving kind of an accurate portrayal.
Well, I'm asking you to stretch beyond your sense of reality and appropriateness.
I guess I'm
not asking you to justify it. I'm asking you to do it.
Oh, okay. All right. It feels uncomfortable.
I hope so.
Okay. All right.
I hope so. Yeah, stretch it. And if it's uncomfortable, okay, so.
Okay.
You're not going to die.
I know the relief is amazing. So.
The relief comes from confronting the truth. And before we get the relief, we become even more uncomfortable. But inevitably, on the other side of it, we become more comfortable.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of surgery, right?
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
You bet.
So my question is about putting yourself on the stage under number 2, pride,
Yeah.
and the audience. So for me, my resentment is at my sister, for bullying behavior towards me. Do I
Sure.
want the audience watching her bully me so that they'll sympathize with me? Or do I want them seeing her treating me with respect as an equal?
That one. That one.
Okay.
I'm not looking to co-sign. I'm not looking to co-sign your fantasy about having justified anger.
Okay, got it. That's it.
But I'm very much having you take a look at what would be the ideal of the audience seeing your sister treating you. What would be your fantasy?
Yeah, it would
In
be
the
like,
best of senses.
yes. Okay. All
Oh,
right.
you would see me in a gown with a crown, and she would.
Or my
she
scrubs,
would-
my scrubs, my stethoscope, a respected professional.
Yes, yes, and would be just catching her breath in awe.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Perfect. Wonderful. We're trying to get into an area that we're not used to exploring. And I found that when I explored the extension or the extreme, that it really helped me see more than I was capable of seeing if I hadn't stretched it. So thanks for the additional prompter there.
I have a question about when you mention resentment, I think of this nun that I had, right?
Mm-hmm.
Herb, I was in the 1st grade and I remember like it happened yesterday. Now, the woman had no business being around children.
That's neither here nor there. It sounds like you still have a feeling about it.
I can't let her go. I
Okay.
cannot let her
That's
go.
a good one to look at then.
So, but the thing is, I don't know if it's a resentment or.
All right, then why don't you try to do the work and see what comes up?
Okay, so fill her name in, what happened, and then answer these questions. And then my study group on Tuesday, it said, and I don't get this, it says, number 1, self-esteem. What is my deep belief about who I am? So,
And the prompter is at the beginning of the sentence there on that page is I am.
All right. So when I met this lady, right, I was loved, confident, safe, nurtured. I was in the 1st grade. And
Yeah.
this was my first betrayal by an adult.
Yeah.
And it changed my whole life. Herb.
Yes, I am a sweet and innocent and open, angelic 7-year-old.
Right.
Yes, that's who I am. All right.
So.
And then what would be your fear?
That I'm not.
Right now, huh?
That I'm not. That I'm.
Oh.
That I'm not any of those things.
Okay, there's no right or wrong answer, but that is your answer for right now. So that's all it takes to begin doing this worksheet, just like that.
So you think this lady belongs on my list?
Well, no, you do. You think she belongs on the list. That's why it's been a couple days since that happened.
Yeah, I'm 68. I was 6. I mean,
yeah, and yet here it is, a memory that's caught in your craw.
It is.
Yeah.
And it affects my relationships with people.
Well, we'll find out, won't we?
No, I know.
All right. Well, how about you use the set-aside attitude and prayer and just follow the instructions for this. I think it will help unpack something in you that's been long overdue to be unpacked and removed.
My husband was very active with other people that I didn't know about.
He was
And
unfaithful.
he was unfaithful. It's even hard for me to say that.
Yes,
And,
it was.
yeah. And when I write down unfaithful, you just said a laundry list. Like all I have to do is the laundry list. So I just put, I wanted to put a whole bunch of words after that, but I didn't.
No, you can do that on a separate piece of paper, but that's the incident that you have a resentment for. But I would imagine you have several other incidences that have nothing to do with this infidelity.
Oh, heck yeah.
There you go.
So write A, B, like you had talked about, you had A through Z with your dad.
Yep.
Okay. I just continue to need that support that because I want to go in as deeply as possible, right? So that requires,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
And then the other thing that you talked about is, we have these small study groups, some of us, and would it be effective for us to even play around with reading a worksheet with each other to help?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. 100%. Yes.
Okay.
That would be one of the benefits of the small study group is to test it out with the people. And if they have experience, if they don't have experience, all you're doing is blind leading the blind. So that won't be helpful. It will just actually create bad habits. So it's really important that somebody have some skill in doing the third column or do the best you can. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, perfect.
I had one other question I forgot to ask, and
Sure.
that was a resentment against yourself.
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. I get it every workshop. It's supported actually by at least my interpretation of page 66, and we'll look at it next week. But I mean, when we get back together. But on page 66, it says, sometimes it was remorse, and then we were sore at ourselves. So I think that legitimizes putting yourself on your list, your resentment list, if in fact you have resentments for you against yourself, or maybe making mistakes or picking the wrong husband or picking the wrong spouse or picking the wrong career or God knows what you have regrets for and resentments toward yourself for. And then we'll talk more about that when we get back together again. But yes, absolutely put yourself on the list if it's true.
Right.
It's a little more complicated, and that's why I recommend that people do the worksheets on everybody else that they're going to do it on before they do it on themselves, because it's a little bit more tricky, if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no, you're seeing it correctly. That's right. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you.
I have a very unstable brother who has taken the family to court over a will. And
you have a resentment about that.
I've got a deep resentment about it.
Yeah.
I'm very resentful.
Yeah.
Really resentful at the energy it's taking and the stress I'm feeling. And how dare he do this to me, and how dare he do this to me.
Right, exactly.
And I've been so unstable over the last month because of it, or the last 6 weeks. I've been really unstable mentally about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's taken enormous amounts of time to do stat declarations, dig up evidence, talk to solicitors.
Yeah, no, I've seen it. It's tragic and very disruptive to family relationships, money and wills and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's a very difficult time. So
it comes with enormous grief too, because I can't see how the family can be repaired.
Yeah, well, so you have a lot of expectations about how it should be.
Of course, I do.
You're in denial about what the reality is.
Yes, I think I am.
Well, no, you've just said you're in stress, you're having problems, you have these scripts that you're writing about that how it's all going to turn out, and it's kind of like, are you that prescient? Are you that seeing the future that you can write the script?
No,
you're not. You're not even living very successfully in the present moment, are you?
No.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So you're ripe for this work.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. And so you're going to have to lean into it and embrace your anger.
Okay.
Yeah. It will create some suffering on your part to acknowledge the truth of the reality that you're in. You're in 3 feet of quicksand. And it's hard slugging.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the truth. Yep.
Oh, yeah. It's very, very, very hard.
Yep. That's right. Yep. This will give you, I believe, some ability to process these feelings. It won't necessarily change the reality, but it will change your attitude toward the reality, and you'll be able to sleep at night.
Oh, well, that would be a relief, Herb.
Yes, exactly.
And I've kind of been cranky with cross with myself because I've done a lot of work, you know, and I'm amazed that I'm back to a position where I thought I would never be.
I should be better than that.
I should be better than that.
Hear the should. See, that's the key. I should, because I've got an unrealistic criteria that I believe is the norm, and I don't match up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ouch.
Well,
yeah.
Bill says it on page 64, resentment is the #1 killer. And if you read any scientific magazine based on evidence, they will describe resentments as the source of heart attacks and strokes and cancer and depression and all kinds of nasty stuff. Resentments. Yep. So you're one of the lucky ones. You're conscious of having it, and you're in a process of diminishing and maybe even eliminating it. It's a process. Just because you're convinced by our conversation doesn't mean that by tomorrow you're going to be free. No, it's going to be some work for you, but you've already experienced and tasted the freedom. You said 8 years ago, you tasted the freedom from doing this work and engaging in that prayer that we just talked about. So you know from experience that this process works, and it won't work quickly, but it will work.
Thanks, Herb.
Where do I look for about the tree, the trunk, and the branches? I missed that.
Okay, that would be page. Yeah, no, it's wonderful image because it helps us have a roadmap for what we're doing in step 4, inventory, on page 21.
Didn't know that.
I understand. Are you looking at page 21 in the Way of Life document?
I'm looking at page 23 right now, the resentment thing, but I will. It's right here, page 21. Yeah.
All right. So you see the foundation is the selfishness, and I said that's like the roots of the tree, and the fruits of the root are resentment, fear, and sex, etc.
Okay.
All right.
Yes. Okay. Your guide told you to do 3, and then he sent you back and do 3 more and do 3 more. And you're saying that after a number of them, it subconsciously got to you more than anything else? You started getting a picture?
Well, I wouldn't quite phrase it that way. I got very conscious of what was hidden to me prior to that. I don't need to use the term subconscious. I just know that it was like pulling the curtain back, and I was able to see something I had never been able to see.
Okay.
All right. And so if you haven't had that experience, maybe that will be an experience that you'll receive this time.
Good. Well, that's what I'm looking forward to. With the 2 weeks off, I hope to be diligent and catch up on everything and read all that materials and work on those, because I really do want to get to know myself better.
And that's what this does. Everything that you said, I support and endorse. And in addition to that, thank you for prompting it from me. On the website, is a recording, a set of recordings that were edited from a prior workshop, where there's probably 2 or 3 recordings that are 45 minutes apiece in dialogue with people about doing the third column. So you would hear other people's interpretation and my helping them sort of break the code. And so that would be very helpful effort for everybody to go to the website and listen to that material while they're doing a third column or after they've done the third column. Probably better to do it after rather than before, so that you actually have some experience of maybe struggling. I know I struggled with completing the worksheet in a helpful way. Mm-hmm.
I didn't listen to that yet.
Well, there's a table of, thank you for that question too, because there's a table of contents in your Way of Life document on page 67. Recordings 15, 16, 18, and 19. So there's 4 recordings on this aspect of resentments. I skipped over one because we're going to be talking about that next time we get together, and that's the prayer for the removal of deep resentments. You're welcome to listen to it, but I'll be unpacking pages 66 and 67. Assignment number 13. That's all really is entail reading and highlighting it, and then I'll unpack it for you. It's a very powerful approach to getting rid of your resentments.
Good. I do understand that the more that we put into it, the better we're going to understand what's happening.
There's only one way through this work, and that's to do it. To literally practice it and then work with somebody who has some experience, or here on the workshop, maybe a sponsor or step guide, or here, so that you can kind of, I use the term break the code. This is not intuitive. This is not formulaic. There's an action that is recommended doing the worksheet, and then with some guidance, all of a sudden the curtain parts and you can see something that you've never been able to see before. I don't mean to make it mystical or magical, but it feels like that after you've been through it.
From the stage.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, appreciate it. Thank you.
I wanted to ask you a question, Herb, and I was reading in your book, and I read it numerous times on step 4, and I don't know if I have this perfect, but I wanted to ask you what you meant in this part. You said that at this part in column 3, that understanding self-esteem is the key to everything, and that you don't understand it, go to pride and work backwards.
Thank you for that suggestion, actually, because it's a technique that I discovered. So let me back up just a little bit, because you pressed another button for me, which is just wonderful. We're not used to thinking in the way we're invited to by this format in this worksheet. What is my sense of my self-esteem? Who do I believe I am? And it's very self-reflective and analytical. If we have any problem with it, go to the pride part. Go to put the person on the stage and yourself in connection to them, and get an appropriate audience. Maybe it's my mother, and in the audience are all of my relatives, or just my family, or something like that. And ask, how do I want my family to see my mother treating me? How do I want my family or my relatives to see my father treating me? And then I write that down, and it might reveal something about who I believe I am. And so I backdoor it. If I want my family to see my dad treating me as a beloved son, I must believe that I am worthy of being a beloved son. And I've backdoored it and discovered something that I couldn't have done if I just faced it head on. Does that help?
It really does, Herb. Yeah, I thank you so much for that. You know, that part there is very meaningful to me, because going back to last week when you were talking about, when you talked about freeze, when you talked about being a chameleon and how you just wanted to blend in. And then you also said that, and I don't know if I heard this correct, Herb, you help me if I didn't, but you talked about being shame-based.
Yeah.
Okay, so I relate to all of those, and that's kind of where I come from. So the self-esteem part for me has been, you know, it's been difficult because I always wanted to be well thought of, but I just never really thought that I deserved that.
Yeah, yeah. So you'll have a little bit of a tendency to look a little bit negatively at this then. And I'm counseling everybody, especially people like yourself and myself, is to adopt the principle, it's never negative. The healthy approach to this, to open it up, is never going to be negative. It's not because I have low self-esteem. I might have from a psychological standpoint, which is what I in fact had, but I had this habituated attitude about myself as an entitled person, a superior person. I'm very confident that it was my mechanism, if I want to get psychological, for overcoming the low self-esteem. I actually adopted the belief that I'm better. I'm better than you.
Yes, I really understand that, Herb.
Yeah. So it's an overcompensation or a compensatory reaction that's completely masked from me. I don't see that. All I know is I'm God's gift.
Yeah, I get it. You know, going back to working the steps, you know, years ago when I did the steps with the 4-step in that, and I had that 4-step inventory with self-esteem, anger, pride, all those things. Well, heck, I just looked at that, Herb, and I just went through there, check that box, check that box, check that box, check that box. Yep, I'm all of those. On to the next one.
And what was the benefit of that for you?
Nothing really.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah, but you know, it's, you know, you do it, Herb, and you're doing it to be sober and to be happy, joyous, and free, and it's part of the process. And, you know, thank God, here I am today sitting talking to you, which is great.
I was willing to do it to the best level of my understanding and their direction. And I do believe that willingness and the minimal effort kept me around. It didn't change me.
Yes.
It kept me around so that I would have an opportunity to be changed. The Latin derivative of the word motive is movere, to move. What is underneath moving you? You may not know the answer to that, or at least you may have an answer that you're not sure is the right answer, or you may have an answer that you're sure is the right answer and it might be delusional. I mean, there's lots of opportunities here. And so do this work in the 3rd column, which is about your beliefs. And the 4th column will be about your motives. So it's a process of discovery.
And should I be the subject
Yes.
of the resentment?
Well, if in fact you are. If in fact you are the subject of the resentment. Yeah. And that's why the conversation concerning being specific is so important. What is the resentment? What is actually the resentment? Not just a vague feeling, but get very down into the particulars.
Well, at this point, it's just that I'm 60 and I haven't done that stuff yet.
Well, my God, what's keeping you back?
That's the big question.
It's your question.
And
Do you
I don't know the answer.
Well, now there's a source of resentment maybe that I should know the answer. Or maybe spend some quiet time gently asking, what's the right question? What's the healthy question here? Yeah, you're on it. Yep, you're
Well, thanks very much.
You're knocking on the door. Yep.
It's funny with these resentments because I think I go through my day just doing my day and I get resentful about the little things. I could totally tag those, right? But like I had an experience just the other day where somebody very important in my life had responded to a situation in a very, very hurtful way.
To you.
To me, yes. And this was a situation that occurred. I can't go into detail.
No, you don't need to because we're not there yet. But what's the resentment?
Not understanding me.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, being misunderstood.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's perfect. I mean, this is going to be a wonderful, revealing experience for you, and then for the balance of them if you choose to unpack it with us. But you haven't done the column 3 work yet, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So what the reason I bring it up is because it was very hurtful, and it was very hurtful.
Oh, we know you got a resentment.
Right.
Yeah. You so badly want to tell me the story.
I know.
I don't want to hear the story.
Thank you. So I didn't realize that I was still carrying it.
Oh, right.
So this person brought this issue up.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. So does that mean I am still carrying it? Yeah, I guess that means I am still carrying it because it's
Look
really,
at you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And then just the other thing I want to say, because I want to let other people talk, is that I see the polarity in me of the narcissist and the victim. Hello, people. You should be doing this. Then, oh my God, I'm not good enough. I'm this, that nobody, it's like, wow, Jesus, I got some work to do. So thank you for letting me
what a gift! What a gift that you have. You've opened Dagwood's closet, and it's all coming down on the floor.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
The resentment prayer.
Yes.
I'm powerless over those narcissistic tendencies. Yes, they might be mild. I'm not, going out there and driving people to distraction. But deep within me, and from my early childhood, I've acted in that way. I've had the entitlement, particularly with my sister and all that stuff. So I'm powerless over that. I'm powerless over the anger. It's all genetic. And is there something that God, through this work, we just pray for and it removes in his time?
Yeah. He says we're as powerless over our deep resentments as we are over alcohol. And that's going to be the subject of the workshop when we get together again to take a look at this prayer. It's not a prayer for them. It's a prayer for my healing. It's a prayer to invite the divine surgeon to surgically remove this cancer of this deep resentment from me. And it's so powerful and it's so effective. And we'll talk about it next week. All right.
Okay. Perfect.
Thanks very much. Let's try something. What's the resentment?
The resentment is against a close girlfriend of mine who pushed me away, pushed my friendship away, and about 3 years ago, because she thought I was emotionally unhealthy, which I was. I was emotionally unhealthy.
Right.
But because of that, I was denied the experience of her having her first child, and essentially the experience of having a really old, enduring friendship with her.
Yeah. So in personal relations, what's your belief about best friends?
That they should forgive each other.
Yeah, they should tolerate each other. They should have cut each other a large swath, right? Okay, that is your belief. That is your belief. What's your fear? What fear comes up now in your gut when you say that out loud, when you feel that, when you think that?
I can't trust anyone.
All right, there you go. There's no right or wrong answer. There's just your answers. Okay. And now you've given me the opportunity to say something to everybody that I haven't said already, and that is, remember, the third column is the third, and there is a fourth column, which means that the third column is only half of the story, and the fourth column will give us the rest of the story. So if it feels like incomplete what we just did, because from my standpoint, it was complete for third column, then you will be getting to the fourth column and taking another look at those first 5 questions, and it will ask you questions about your motive. Right?
Yeah.
And it will also ask at the top, fancied or real. I mean, I know what you would like reality to be like, but is it actually like that?
Thank you for bringing that up, because that is something that, again, really trips me up, that question. Is it fancied or real? Well, my reaction all the time, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, has always been, of course it's real.
The feeling. No. See, of course, you're right. Of course, your feeling is real. But is the reality about which your feeling, is that real? Have you interpreted reality objectively?
Yeah, I need help with that question.
Exactly.
So I'm excited about that. It's weird to say that. I'm excited about this 4th step because
because you've raised energy and issues, and you're excited because you know from your past experience that it's going to get resolved. You're going to come to peace with the outcome of whatever it is that you process. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, on the other side of this work of angst and suffering, because it is, this work is the reason I ask people to sign the participant agreement. At the other side of this is freedom, blue sky and sunshine. And I'm not being Pollyannish or trying to poetically give you any type of false expectations at all. It's totally 100% my experience personally. And for 25 years, I've done these workshops. I've seen it happen for everybody who does the work.
But it brings to mind my thought that I want to be perfect. I want to do this perfectly.
Yeah, then never do it.
I can't do it perfectly. I know that because I'm not perfect. But I think I sometimes try for that, and it always gets me into trouble. And so that's all I've got for tonight.
Well, one of the comments I make regularly, and I hope you and everybody can hear this, if you wait to find the time to do the work, you will never do the work. I cleaned many a sock drawer rather than do step 4.
Exactly.
I cleaned the trunk of my car. I cleaned my garage. Anything other than doing column 3 and column 4. But finally, because it was a relationship I had with this step guide of accountability, and he kept asking me and coaching me, really, I planned it. I look at my schedule for the week and I say, okay, on Wednesday afternoon between 5 and 6, I have some time, I'm going to do that. On Saturday morning, I have some time between 10 and 12, I'm going to do it then. And I make an appointment with myself as if I were making an appointment with a doctor. And when it's on my schedule, I have more chance of doing it than when it's just in my mind as important.
That's true. I am a great procrastinator, and I do.
A perfectionist is always a procrastinator because they have a fear of starting something that won't be perfect. So they don't start, which is a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if you don't start, of course, you're certainly not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're a perfect procrastinator.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot more regret, anguish, and self-hatred.
The key to this third column work is, as I've said, finding out what we believe at the deepest level of our soul, what we believe about ourselves, what we believe about other people, what we believe is how the world works. Because we all have a story, and this helps us unpack the story to see what's myth and what's the truth. Because if we're living in the myth, we'll create suffering for ourselves and other people. If we're living in the truth, we have the capability of getting free from the suffering, like you experienced.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Freedom from the suffering caused by my own self.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Herb.
Yeah, thank you. Wonderful.
And I've started listing my resentments, but they very quickly get quite messy. Like I go between fact, feeling, story.
Yeah.
So if I can ask an example and you tell me which one would be it. Last year, my mum had a seizure, went into a coma, came out of it psychotic and developed brain damage.
What's your resentment?
The resentment is, there's heaps, but the main one is that she's now not with me.
What's your resentment? What's your resentment? Get clear about your resentment. It's not about your mother. Your mother's irrelevant in this story. Your mother is irrelevant in this story. Wait. The only thing relevant is your feeling about your mother and the incident.
What do I feel? Abandoned?
Okay. But you have a resentment. So don't try to figure out a word. You're angry about something. What are you angry about?
That it happened.
Okay. I'm angry that my mother had a physical episode.
Yeah.
All right, great. That's it. Then you will look at the column 3 and do the work from that viewpoint.
Okay, so it's I resent mum for having a physical episode.
Well, maybe you do resent mom, but I heard you resent the event.
Yes.
It's different.
Mm-hmm.
Did she have a stroke, did you say?
Just a seizure.
Okay, so I resent seizures.
Okay.
Or do you resent your mother for having a seizure because if she'd taken better care of herself, she wouldn't have it?
That one.
Ah, there you go. See, it takes a little bit of teaching it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. So you don't actually resent the phenomenon of seizure. You resent the fact that your mother had a seizure
Yeah.
and disadvantaged you.
Yes.
There, that's it. Then look at it from that. But see, it's really, and what you're helping us shape for everybody, that it's really important to be specific. Not vague, not mushy.
Yeah.
Very specific. And in fact, if you can think about the month and the day and the time and the person and the incident, I mean, really zero in on the specifics. I had a resentment toward Alan Roman in the 8th grade because on the field on a Friday night, he broke my nose.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. And so there's many resentments that come out of it. Do I list all those on separate sheets as well?
Depends on, we're looking for anywhere from 10 to 20 different resentments, different people. So it's about substantial ones.
Yeah.
So we're not looking for the tributary streams to the river. We're looking for the various rivers.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I will get cracking on all of that.
Yeah. Well, and see, what you've helped me do now is also help people shape so that it's not overwhelming. I've had people with 50 to 100 to 200 resentments because they've never done the work before. And they were like, oh my God, no. Do 10. That's what we're going to do here. The target is going to be do 10 of the different people or circumstances, because as my good teacher, Father Rohr, says, what we do any one place, we do every place. You're the source of your resentments.
Yes, I am.
Every one of them has come from you. They're your feelings.
They are. I'm very pissed off with the reality that I've had, though.
Exactly. So it's your pissed offness that's creating your resentment.
It does, but also reality sucks.
No, it doesn't. Actually, it just is. No, it just is what it is.
You're killing me.
No, it just is what it is.
Oy.
Is the glass half full or half empty?
Neither is your answer.
No, wrong. The glass is what it is. It's my attitude about the glass that's different. The glass doesn't change.
But how, Herb, do you reconcile shit things?
Well, like, because you're wearing shit glasses, and so everything's brown.
Even big problems?
Even big problems. They're just circumstances, and it's about your attitude. You need to read Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. He was in Auschwitz. And he said, I can't change anything except my attitude about everything.
Yeah. I obviously need to hear this because I'm having a reaction of like, what?
Yes, of course. No, you're so positioned to have a big experience with this. Adopt. Don't just adopt what I'm saying and go, oh, Herb's right. No, don't do that. But go like, Herb's full of shit. But I'm going to do this work anyway in the milieu of the set-aside prayer. And once I do that, he will understand my story. And I just might. Wonderful work today. I'm glad we did it the way we did it. And thank you for your participation. Thank you. Please join me in the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.